For some of you, recent efforts to eliminate Iran's nuclear program bring back memories of the Cold War, an arms race between Russia and the U.S. Cities like Rochester created public bomb shelters in case of a nuclear attack. While lawmakers have said there is no threat, some of you reached out to us to see if any of those bomb shelters are still in existence. And Emily, you looked into this. What did you find out?
Well, Lynette, this piece of history is getting some renewed attention. So I visited the Central Library to bring your questions straight to a local historical researcher, asking if there are any functional bomb shelters left in our area.
The first job is to look over your own home for shelter possibilities. If you live in a private home that is well built, the cellar is the safest place to be.
This video was produced by the Federal Civil Defense Administration in 1951. John asks, are there still any existing nuclear fallout shelters in New York State? They were very common and numerous during the Cold War. If by chance the answer is yes, are they still viable? I talked with Emily Morey, a historical researcher with the Office of Rochester and Monroe County History.
By 1974, there were still 584 public fallout shelters that Monroe County was responsible for.
Public shelters were common at schools and hospitals. You can still see their faded signs in some places, like the Salvation Army on Liberty Pole Way. But as far as we know, no public shelters remain.
The public shelters were pretty much done away with in the late 70s. The Office of Civil Defense was rebranded as the Office of Emergency Preparedness in 1978. And at that point, that's when the public fallout shelters were filled in or repurposed as storage.
By 1969, there were about 250 home-built fallout shelters deemed suitable by Monroe County, possibly inspired by materials like these.
There's some construction happening here at the Rundell Library right now, and 64 years ago this summer, there was also construction happening here of a much different kind. Right behind me is where a model fallout shelter was built above ground here at the corner of South Ave and Broad Street to give the people of Rochester some ideas for how to build their own home shelters.
This model shelter drew up to 750 visitors per day in 1961, when Cold War tensions were high. After that,
apparently there were 40 to 50 fallout shelters being built a week in Monroe County.
If you have a workbench or strong table big enough to get under, move it into your shelter area near a wall or strong supporting column. If the time comes when you actually have to take shelter, lie under the table.
Looking at it, it might look a bit absurd or quaint or even comical in a very bizarre, absurd way. But we have to remember that at that time, as I mentioned, this was really the height of the Cold War with the Bay of Pigs and the Berlin Wall going up. And there was a real sense that a nuclear attack was possible.
Learn the location of public shelters in areas where you work or frequently visit.
It was recommended that home fallout shelters have at least 10 square feet of space per person with enough supplies to last a couple of weeks. The cost to build a shelter at home started at about $150 in the 50s and 60s, which would be close to $2,000 today. If you have a good question you'd like answered, send us an email at goodquestion@whec.com. Lynette?